My name is Mike. I'm an alcoholic.
Hi, Mike.
I feel like a mosquito at a nudist colony. I'm really excited, but I don't know where to get started. Actually, I do know where to get started, and that's thank you, Steve, for inviting me. I'd say the feeling is mutual about what a person in recovery looks like. Thank you. Uh, my sponsor is Vic Kepler, and he's got a sponsor. I know that because I've met him. And my sobriety birthday is May 11th, 2002. My home group is Water's Edge, meets 7 a.m. every day of the week on the north end of Lake Union. I only know a little, more is constantly being revealed. And if you disagree with anything I say, you're probably right. And you're definitely right if your sponsor agrees with you that I'm wrong. I'm sure of it. But if you're new to the program, and I don't know how many are new, but maybe there's a few of you that are, your job is to get your ass through the 12 steps as quick as possible. You can only learn so much by osmosis, sitting in meetings. You have to do the work, in my opinion. My story is not unique. Very simple. It's like everybody else's. I fell in an outhouse, and thanks to the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, I was able to crawl out with a ham sandwich and a diamond ring. I grew up in a suburb north of Los Angeles. It's called Seattle. In the late 1970s, I went in for my annual physical, and the doctor gave me a blood test. And then he called me a couple days later, and he said, "Mike, I got some bad news for you." I said, "What's wrong?" He says, "Well, we looked at your blood tests, and you've got a very serious Valium deficiency. But don't worry, we can get your Valium count back up through prescriptions and and supplements, etc." I said, "Oh, good, thank God." And I had a job at the time that required public speaking, and I had this problem was I had one of my many fears was a fear of public speaking. So every time I would speak, I'd pop a Valium. So, however, thanks to this program and the 12 steps, in the last 22 years, and unfortunately for you, I have overcome my fear of public speaking. I now know that Valium is my solid form of alcohol. It's the same receptors in the brain that alcohol hits. So I haven't had a drink since 98, but the last day I took a hit of Valium was May 10th, 2002. So my sobriety birthday is May 11th, 2002. In the spring of 1998, I was waking up each morning with this vicious hangover, and I could have a relationship hangover with it. I could have a body shop hangover with it. I could have a legal hangover with it. I could have a public health hangover with it. And each morning, I would say with this vicious hangover, I'd say, "I'm not going to drink tonight because I don't want to feel like this tomorrow morning." And then, bam, Groundhog Day. I was there. I'm a slow learner. But eventually it dawned on me, I say this every morning. And here I am again. And at that moment, my sponsor later said that was a moment of clarity, one of the few I've had, I guess. I said, I need some help. So I went in and saw my business partner. He was also my best friend, and he was also my employer, 1998. I said, I can't stop drinking. And he said, I know what to do. And he said, we'll get you in this treatment center. Treatment center was in California, and I agreed to go. And about 4 days before I got on the plane to California, I went into his office, and his name was Bill. And I said, Bill, this treatment center has got nothing to do with Alcoholics Anonymous, does it? And he said, well, Mike, all these treatment centers are 12-step based. And I said, oh, good, as long as it doesn't have anything to do with Alcoholics Anonymous. I was so ignorant. All I knew is I didn't want to be in AA. That's all I knew. Didn't want anything to do it, even though I had an uncle that was hugely successful in it. So, so I got to this treatment center, and then I got the 12 steps on the wall. And I was really offended at step 2. It said, came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. And I go, don't you know who I think I am? You're saying I'm insane. Come on, me? And then I looked out the window, and there's these beautiful buildings, green lawns and shrubs, and these pathways winding through it nicely, and flowered pathways. And they had this little lake with a serenity path around it. And it dawned on me, my God, I'm in an insane asylum. I'm in the funny farm. Maybe they know something I don't know. So I stuck it out for 28 days. And one reason, when I was in early sobriety, I loved speaker tapes. And so I like humor and with a message. And the first speaker I ever heard was in this treatment center. And it was my second day there. And he was from the outside. He'd been a patient. And he said, he started out his the AA meeting with, for me, drinking and drugging was like making love with an 800-pound gorilla. He says, the sex was great, but it wasn't over till the gorilla said it was over. And I said, I like that. That's funny. And even in the second day of sobriety, I said, that is what I'm attracted to. So I learned a big secret along the way. And the secret is, and if you're new, the secret is your problem isn't booze or drugs. If you have that's merely a symptom. If your temperature is 105 degrees, the cause of your problem is not the temperature, the high temperature. The cause is a disease process caused by a virus or a bacterial infection. That's the cause. And my my sponsor says, when you're seeking to solve a problem, it's good to correctly identify the cause. So my alcohol use and Valium use was merely a symptom. Page 64. We had to get down to root. Liquor was but a symptom. We had to get down to causes and conditions. But it turns out my problem, and I didn't have this when I was 8, 9, 10, but there's something about the prison walls closing in on the growing boy, the shadows of the prison walls. Life was intimidating to me. By the time I was 18, 19 years of age, I had kind of pretty much a low-level anxiety that was almost constant. And as the doctor's opinion says, when I had a few drinks, I felt an ease and comfort. Well, my problem is, in my natural state, I'm uneasy and I'm uncomfortable. Why not take a few drinks? Life is a contact sport. We have collisions with others that hurt us, cause us injuries. We get disrespected, we get rejected. And the memories of those injuries cause us fear. Page 64 calls those memories of pain resentments. And I had a resentment about the word resentment when I first got here. I had no idea what it meant. And the miracle of AA for me is that if I do the 12 steps, especially steps 4 through 9. I can pretty much eliminate the memories of these injuries, and I can pretty much eliminate fear out of my life. Ken, that was a very powerful story. Thank you. And when I first here identified with somebody who said, I'm an egomaniac with an inferiority complex. And so when I drink, that inferiority complex goes away. Now, step 4 requires us to do a fearless moral inventory. And page 65, I was at a meeting once and the guy said, everything I need to know is in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. I said, that is a very narrow-minded individual. Now I'm that individual. Everything I need to know is in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. But on page 65, and when I first looked at this, I thought this was rather silly. It's got 3 columns, and I'm resentful at is the first column, and the first person is I'm resentful at Mr. Brown. Second column, the cause, his attention to my wife. He told my wife of my mistress, and Brown may get my job at the office. There's a great AA t-shirt that says, Mr. Brown needs his ass kicked. If I ever start an AA meeting, I'm going to call it Mr. Brown needs his ass kicked. So the third column, now I've had a few years of education. And I think I learned about instincts, how salmon swim upstream after spawn after 4 years, but I never really learned about human instincts. I think maybe they said. And one of the great education for me is that we all have at least 3 basic instincts: sex, social instinct, and security instinct. And the third column addresses those. So sex, reproduction, social instinct. We're all like ants in an anthill, bees in a beehive. And if your social instinct is being met, your self-esteem is good. If your social instinct is not being met, your self-esteem is in the toilet. And we all, security instinct, we all like a roof over our head, we like food on the table, we like the rain on the outside, we like the heat on the inside, and we like to feel safe. So I didn't realize that those instincts were driving me my whole life in my quest for money, property, and prestige. And then we see that when you threaten an instinct, sex, social, security, it generates fear. So we see the word fear is bracketed alongside our problems with Mr. Brown. And then on the bottom of page 67, when I read these words, when they finally sank in, I just said, oh, they just so nailed me. Notice that the word fear is bracketed alongside the difficulties with Mr. Brown. This short word seems to somehow touches about every aspect of our lives. It was an evil and corroding thread. The fabric of our existence was shot through with it. Now notice that the problems that Mr. Brown is bringing to the attention of the world is he's hitting on my wife. Why? Because I'm not paying attention to her. He told my wife of my mistress because I have a poor character and I'm fooling around on her. And Brown, I'm doing such a poor job at work, he may get my job. Now, those are self-inflicted injuries that are related to my bad character that comes out in that I get to take a look at when I do the steps. So I'm a self-generating fear machine. I create my own fear by my bad conduct. Well, maybe if I start engaging in good conduct, I can lessen the fear. Now, early on, my sponsor, the late, great John Beeson, my first sponsor, said to me, Mike, maybe, just maybe, no promises, but maybe someday you're going to see a flash of light and hear a loud pop. And I said, John, what will that be? A flash of light and a loud pop. He said, Mike, that'll be your head coming out of your ass. Now, after about 20 months, the only thing I did right in early sobriety is once a week I'd meet with my sponsor and we would go through the Sermon on the Mount by Emmett Fox. Now, and after about 20 months, I said, John, I don't think the program's working for me. I don't feel that good. And he laughed and he said, Mike, the program of Alcoholics Anonymous is working for millions of people who are living happy and useful lives. Mikey's program sucks. You never go to meetings. You've never done the steps. You're not in the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. How can you say it is not working for you? And so that little comeuppance, I said, okay, how do I do a 4-step? Did the Fearless Moral Inventory. Then I didn't want to tell my sponsor what I did a fear list as part of it too. I didn't want to tell him I was afraid of speaking in public. So I went to a priest at Seattle U who was in the program. And I figured between being a priest and this program, I could unload on him my deepest, darkest secrets. And literally, when I walked out, 45 minutes later of that 5th step with the priest, it was like I was 2 feet off the ground. It was like the weight of the world had been lifted from my shoulders. And saw a flash of light, heard a loud pop. And the 5th step promises on page 75, they're just beautiful. We can be alone at perfect peace and ease. I had never had this concept of being alone in perfect peace and at ease. Wow. And then I love this. Our fears fall from us. Wow. Yes, that was my feeling at the time. So as you can guess, ad nauseum, my message to each of you is do the 12 steps. Your fears will fall away. Now, about 2001, one of my daughters had a bit part in the Seattle Opera production of The Ring. And she's not a singer, it was a non-singing part. And I got to go to dress rehearsals for The Ring. And in The Ring, the hero and the main character is a fellow named Siegfried. It's German. And Siegfried has a unique characteristic, and that is he lives without fear. And again, I'm a slow learner. It slowly sinks into me, the Wagner is saying the other characters in the opera live in fear because he's unique. He lives without fear. So, and then I went, maybe the audience also has fear. Maybe I'm not the only one that has fear, anxiety in my life. And maybe the world has fear. The number one cause of all our problems is fear, individually, community, whatever. Now, again, if you take the 12 steps, you can reduce that fear 99%, and you can live like Siegfried without fear. And when that pang of fear rises, we know what to do about it. Now, I worked at the Boeing Company from 1976 to 1980, and my purpose was to help the company make money for the stockholders, and they paid me a salary for it. But there were side benefits. I got health insurance, got a retirement program, an investment program that match. So this is one of my things about AA meetings. Some people think AA is a support group. You will find people that will support you. But that's a side benefit. That's not the purpose of an AA meeting. Some people think AA social group. And it's true, some of my best friends are in AA, and that's where I met them. But that's a side benefit. That's not the primary purpose. And some people think, especially outsider, that a person can go to AA and see people from all walks of life living successful, happy, and useful lives. Definitely side benefit, but that's not the purpose of an AA meeting. Very little on meetings in the big book or the 12 by 12. And this is the worst for me. Some people think an AA meeting is group therapy. I can come in here and tell you all my problems of my family of origin and all this sort of stuff. I could throw up all over the floor and you'll be accepting to me. I grant you that you'll feel better. But that's not the purpose of AA. In 1958, an AA meeting, 1958 Grapevine, Bill W. wrote, the sole purpose of an AA meeting is teaching and practicing the 12 steps. And the fifth tradition tells us about it. Each group has but one primary purpose. Notice the redundancy of one and primary. Could have said one purpose or primary purpose. One primary purpose. Carry the message to the alcoholic who still suffers. So what's that message? And the message is in step 12. Having had a spiritual awakening, which to me is a reduction in fear and the ability to live a happy and useful life. How do we get this spiritual awakening? As the result of these steps. We tried to carry this message. What message? That you can have a spiritual awakening, a reduction in fear, and be happy and useful if you do the 12 steps. Early on, my sponsor, I loved my first sponsor. He died in 2008. But he said, Mike, if you got a problem, let's talk about it, you and me. But you don't take it to a meeting. Everybody in the meeting has got their own problems. They don't want to hear about yours. And if you go in there and talk about your problems, you may deny the newcomer the message that he or she can have a spiritual awakening as the result of these steps. And if they miss that message, you just may kill them. This is a deadly disease. On page 52 of the big book, it talks about the bedevilments. These are some of the afflictions that we have when we show up here in Alcoholics Anonymous. And my sponsor read it to him. He says, number one, we were having trouble with personal relationships. I said, yeah, I can relate to that one. 2, we couldn't control our emotional natures. 3, we were a prey to misery and depression. We couldn't make a living. We had a feeling of uselessness. My favorite, we were full of fear. Second favorite, we were unhappy, to say the least. We couldn't seem to be of real help to other people. Then he asked me a ninth one. He said, Mike, do you have a sense, a feeling of impending doom? And I said, yeah. And he said, you know what that is? I said, no. He says, that's impending doom. So on page 100, 48 pages later, it says, follow the dictates of a higher power, and you will presently live, I love this, in a new and wonderful world. And then it says, no matter what your present circumstances. Exclamation point. That means this is an important sentence. Exclamation point. Follow the dictates of a higher power, follow the 12 steps, and you will presently live in a new and wonderful world, no matter what your present circumstances. Exclamation point. What happens between page 52 and 100? The 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. That's what goes on in the big book in between them. On page 132, 17 lines down from the top, 17 lines up from the bottom, 2 words in from the left, 2 words in from the right is the following sentence. We absolutely insist on enjoying life. And then the sentences before that says, we aren't a glum lot. And this is important. If newcomers could see no joy or fun in our existence, they wouldn't want it. So I now realize that's why humor was so important to me when I would hear speaker tapes early on. And then it goes on to say, so we think cheerfulness and laughter make for usefulness. And then it says, why shouldn't we laugh? We have recovered and have been given the power to help others. I came in here powerless over alcohol and a whole bunch of my fear and a whole bunch of other things. And now I have been given the power to help others. What a gift. And what that power entails, we are EMTs for alcoholism. We have the power to save lives, put families back together, make new families, whatever it is. It is a healing, powerful power, and it has been given to us. I was at a meeting in Hawaii, and I heard this guy say, today I walk with my heroes as a peer. I said, hey, that's pretty cool. Walk with your heroes as a peer. And I thought immediately, well, Roy Rogers has passed away, so I don't know if I can walk with him. But and that's the truth. Today, I walk with my heroes. Each of you, my fellow EMTs, that are living happy and useful lives and saving lives. Thank you so much for that. Thank you for the privilege of your time. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, thank you, Mike, and thank you, Ken. Another hand. And Chuck and Dave for reading. Lara for the dessert. Steve for promising to be trustworthy with our money.